Hello there again, folks. Doing a little more planning with some of these videos. Today I'm going to mount the air cleaner. That's been painted and dry. I'm going to move you around to the other side. When I put the engine together, I didn't adjust the valves. I just made sure they were adjusted to the point where we weren't going to bend a push rod if we turned the engine over. So today we're going to do the actual initial valve adjustment with clearances, feeler gauge, that etc., or that stuff, and get them locked in place. Then I've got some other parts I've got soaked overnight. I'm going to clean them up, get those painted, and hopefully I can do a walk around at the end with what we actually got accomplished today. So what I'm going to do is take you for a ride here in a second and walk you around where we stand right now, so you'll have that for a comparison as to what we got done. Don't expect miracles, because I've said before and I'll say it again, relatively slow process, but I'm retired. I don't have a schedule. Had one of our quote planning meetings, if you will. No, just went over to my buddies for coffee this morning, but we discussed planning out my videos, and I kind of look at it like for 32.5 years I planned my month, my week, my year, my day, right down to about the hour when I was working. But I got paid very well to do that. This is a hobby. This is what I do. I don't really plan my days. My wife plans a few of them for me occasionally, but for the most part, I get up in the morning and I go do whatever it is that I'm going to do that day. I kind of like that, so forgive me that these videos skip around, bounce around. Some of them are repetitive, but I haven't really got to the point where I'm going to schedule my days around these YouTube videos. I hope you can forgive me for that, but that's what happens when you're retired. I've done enough planning. I do what I absolutely have to now to get along, and that's it. So, alright guys, hang on. I'm going to get you off the tripod and take you for a little walk around here, and then we'll go from there. We'll see you on the end of this. Okay, so just to reiterate, not a lot of progress on the rear end here. We're on hold for some parts, but we'll move along once we get those. Actually, a lot of stuff can happen once I get those seals in there. Those are kind of the hold up right now for a lot of things. But this center section here, I might finish getting cleaned up, might get primer on it today, maybe some paint, I'm not sure. I did get the gauge clusters in. Let's see, the governor on, the governor linkage on. I think I showed you all this. The steering column, or the steering shaft, the first part of it. There's another part that goes up to, there's no, I'm not showing you anything, there's no steering wheel there, but anyway, you get the drift. Got the whole front bolster here to clean up. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that today or the back end. And you know what? I might even get both done. But this is where we stand as of right now. Temperature sensor. This is the line that goes down to the oil sending unit, or the oil pressure gauge, I'm sorry. Goes down to a fitting down below there. Got to get the front wheels off. The left side, I'm going to check them all and clean them. It sounds pretty good. The right side, now you can't hear it, but it's got a growl to it, so probably going to need some wheel bearings on this side. Okay, so, and these are the brake drums and the bands. Not sure where the other brake band is. It might be under the cover. Those all need to be cleaned up, but those can't go on until I get the seals. And that's about it. Air cleaner's hanging over here on the jib, and the water pump on there, and the distributor, the carb, the starter, they all need to be cleaned up. The other parts I've got, as you can't see it behind all the junk, are soaking. So with that, I'll get back to work, and I'll video what I video, and if I remember to turn the camera on, we might have some good stuff. All right, later. Kind of a perfect example of what I was talking about. Real thick paint on one side of the project, or a piece of part, and no paint on the other. These are the clips that hold the distributor in place so you can adjust your timing. I'll show you later exactly. But this is one I've cleaned up on the inside. They go on like this. This bolt goes through, and there's a ring on the distributor that they sit on and clamp it. So obviously there's not very much access to the back of these clamps. However, if I was going to paint this tractor, I'd have taken these clamps off and cleaned these out like I did. This one I've already got pretty well cleaned out. It's, like I said, it is meticulous because this is one of the few ways to do it. I mean, you could fire up the sandblaster, but that's kind of hard to hang on to in the blaster. But here's the one I haven't touched yet. Let's see how this one looks on the back side. I'm guessing not good because the bolt wouldn't come out. Yeah, see? I'll scrape some of this crud out of here. I mean, there's a little bit of dirt, alright, and there's about ½ an inch of paint, because when you paint these, I don't, you just kind of give them a steam Jenny-in. Jenny-in? Yeah, clean them with a steam Jenny or a pressure washer, and then you fog them. I call it a fog job. They spray what you can spray, and that's what you wind up with. I see that a lot. Guys will buy these tractors, they'll maybe fix a couple of things that absolutely need to be fixed, cob the rest of them up, and then they'll throw a fog job on them. Then they'll turn around and sell them for, you know, going price for around here. So just a word to the wise, or be careful if you're buying a tractor, unless you're very familiar with them, that you don't wind up buying one that's got exactly that. Best way you can do it is check in the nooks and crannies behind things and see if there's that much paint back there, if they just kind of painted over top of the dirt. That'll tell you whether they took them apart, cleaned them up right, or if they just did, quote, a fog job. Not that hard to pull a tractor in, steam Jenny it, or pressure wash it, fog some paint on it. You can make them look really good, especially if you take pictures. The camera really makes them look good. So when you look at them close, this is the kind of stuff you find. I've had a couple other examples, but I've cleaned them up before I thought to get the video turned on. So anyway, hopefully you can see me up here in the corner. I'll get back to you with some more. I don't really want to bore you as I clean these parts up, but if I find anything interesting, I'll get back to you. Later. Okay. Well, I've got some more stuff done, got some parts cleaned up and painted. Of course, you've heard that over and over and over again, but that's the way it is. I thought I'd take a minute just to, when I put this engine together and set it up, I did a really quick valve tappet adjustment, if you will. Not with a feeler gauge, just basically did it by hand, by feel. So I thought I'd take you through adjusting the valves, preliminary adjustment anyway. The clearance is 17 thousandths. So I'll take you through step by step how to adjust the valves on one of these, and that'll get it to the point for an initial adjustment. And then what we'll do is after it gets warmed up, I'll probably adjust it again when I get it started the first time, and then after about 20 hours I'll check them. But it's not too bad, so bear with me. I'm going to spin you around, get you where I think you can see good, and we'll go through it. First thing we need to do is hang on, is we're going to turn the engine around, or excuse me, turn the engine over. If you can see, there's a couple of notches on the fan drive belt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over with the crank, and I'm going to mark those notches so they show up a little better. I'm going to mark those with some white paint. Also, if you look, hopefully you can see, there's a pointer on the timing gear cover. We're going to use that as a reference. We're going to mark both these just so they show up a little better. I can see them, but I want to mark the notches. And we're going to wipe a little extra paint off. Okay, then I'm going to spin the engine 180 degrees. I'm going to mark the other side of that just so I don't have to keep guessing where 180 degrees is. It's not that hard with the crank, but if I take the crank off, I could be 180 degrees off when I put it back on. Okay, so 180 degrees should be right about in there, and I'm going to mark the front of it just with an X because that's not a timing mark, it's just my reference mark. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to have to spin this engine around until we get the number 1. I think you can still see. Let me readjust you a little bit. Till we get the number 1 cylinder on top dead center. That's going to be all the way up on the compression stroke. So, I think we got to go a little bit more. Nope. Okay. Not too far. Keep getting ahead of myself. This should do it this time. We're going to put that pointer right on that first line. That's going to make this cylinder right on top dead center. See, as you can see, they're loose, but they're not as loose as they should be. Then we're going to take, we need a 1/2 wrench for the lock nut. I'm going to move you so you can see better. Probably had enough of the moving the, or watching the engine come out. And once again, need a 1/2 wrench for the lock nut. We're going to want to get them loose, but we want to get them so I've got room to swing that wrench. Then we're going to back that off. We're going to need a screwdriver, a regular screwdriver, and we're going to need a feeler gauge. This is 17 thousandths. That's the clearance we're looking for initially. We're going to check for the clearance here between the valve stem and the tappet. So we're just going to adjust this screw back and forth until we get that to where that's just snugly sitting in there. And we want to move it back and forth because these do get worn spots. We want a nice, comfortable fit. So it's not really pinched in there, but it's not too tight. That looks pretty good. We're going to hold our screwdriver in place, and we're going to tighten our lock nut, one down. And we're going to do the same thing with the second one. This is the same cylinder, number 1 cylinder. Okay, we're going to hold the screwdriver in place, tighten our lock nut. Now we're going to move down to number 3 cylinder, but we're going to turn the engine over 180 degrees. The firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So we're going to turn this 180 degrees, and we're going to adjust number 3. That should be right there. Both the valves should be neutral. They are. You can see this one's a little snug. Was a little snug. But anyway, I've loosened these nuts up. Actually, I never tightened them up beyond finger tight when I put the engine together. Same thing, 17 thousandths. Stick our feeler gauge in there. Feels about perfect. Hold the screwdriver in place. Tighten our lock nut. Yeah, it feels good. And we're going to be going over here. I got to turn the engine over another 180 degrees. We'll put it right back to where those marks are. It'll put on number 4 cylinder top, then center this strip. Right there. Do a little more reaching here. Gotta be a little creative. We got my hand right away, but not a lot more to see. Pretty much the same thing as we just did. But like I said, once I start this up, initial startup, I'll take the valve cover off and I'll adjust these with it running. It's a little tricky, but it can be done. Number 4, and we're going to go back to number 2. Once again, we're going to turn this 180 degrees again. And there we are. Okay. There we go. I like to just run down through these lock nuts to make sure they haven't. I did tighten them all, so I didn't miss one. You want to also watch that you don't turn your adjuster if you do leave one loose, so you can go back and reset it and adjust it after you've rotated the engine to where you need it. Alright, so that's the name of that tune. I'll put the valve cover back on, and that's the way I adjust the valves on these tractors. There you have it, and this I won't tighten up more than finger tight, because like I said, once I initially start it, I want to take this valve cover off to make sure I'm getting oil up through the ports that it should be getting up through actually, before I start it, what I'll do is I'll just get the starter hooked up and leave the plugs out of it and spin it over to prime the oil pump. There's really no way to prime the oil pumps on these other than cranking it by hand, and that can get a little rough. So I like to use a starter just to make sure the oil pressure comes up, and once you got it and you got oil all your ports where you want it, then you can go ahead and do your actual start up and run the engine, put your plugs back in and go from there. But anyway, that's a valve adjustment on a Farmall H tractor. Okay folks, another day bites the dust. Spraying ahead today with daylight savings time, so it's nice to see it daylight out, though I had to remind myself it's getting to be that time of year. You got to get in the house before the windows get dark in the garage if you want to eat dinner before 9 o'clock at night. But anyway, it was a pretty productive day. We got quite a bit done. A lot left to do, but most of what we're doing now is prepping and painting the smaller stuff, and it just takes quite a while, the painting especially, waiting for paint to dry. But we did get some things done on the engine today. We got the air cleaner installed, as you can see. The video went through the initial valve adjustment, and I got some parts cleaned and quite a few painted. I'll take you for a quick walk over to the jib, or the cherry picker, or the engine lift, whatever you want to call it. But I also wanted to show you, this is the choke rod for the tractor, and being that it's contorted and bent like it is, that's the way it's configured initially. With these brackets, you kind of have to put it together like this, then install it on the tractor in the right sequence, because it's not something you can stick down through all the brackets without bending it all to pieces and trying to shape it back the way it belongs. It doesn't work. But anyway, back to the good things. Thermostat housing, upper and lower parts of that. The thermostat sits up in here. This bolts on here. They bolt to the head. This hooks to the upper hose on the radiator. And the distributor drive, and the distributor itself. And over here on the bench, we got the clips for the distributor. Working on this. Got to get that either in the blaster. I might wire brush it because I think it might come out even better than the blaster, believe it or not. Water pump and fan needs to be taken apart and cleaned up. I wanted to show you, this is the exhaust intake manifold, and it needs some work. That's how bad the engine was rusted. You can see how thick the rust is in here, especially on the exhaust ports. The intakes aren't quite as bad. Those are the two intakes. They share the intakes. But I want to make sure I get the inside of that cleaned up good. I don't worry too much about the exhaust side. We can blow the junk out. I don't want to suck any junk in, so we're going to double check that. Probably going to wind up putting that in the blaster. I have a big heavy duty blaster, but my big compressor is out of commission right now. It's got a diesel engine on it, and the fuel return lines are cracked, so it's leaking fuel. So I've got to get those fixed. That's probably another project I'll try to video when I get around to doing it, but again, I have room in the garage to get it in, so we'll get to that when we get to that. But anyway, before I ramble on anymore, I want to tell you, if you can think of any comments or suggestions for me, being new at this video stuff, tell me what I'm doing wrong. That's fine. I can take especially constructive criticism. I'm pretty thick-skinned, but don't beat me up too bad, and I'll see what I can do about it. Other than that, I can just say once again, thanks for watching, and hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care.